And welcome. This is Damon Brown. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV. We got the new website going at bringyourworth.tv. Be sure and check it out. It's actually less of a website, but more of a simple way to go ahead and get involved with the show. My name is Damon Brown. I'm a business coach. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a father of two. I'm a speaker, and it's been a pleasure like doing the Bring Your Worth show over the last few years. My main goal is helping you as a non-traditional entrepreneur. You could be a side hustler, you could be a solopreneur, you could be doing all kinds of different things. My goal is to help you get to where you need to be next through understanding emotional intelligence, understanding passive income, understanding how to juggle the many different things. My kids are 7 and 10, and along with my wife, it's a very busy household, very active parents. And I also did two startups. My second startup called Cuddler, ended up selling that a handful of years ago. And since then, I've been dedicated to supporting y'all on your way. The show is relatively new. It's only been around for a few years. I know some folks that have had the show for much longer than me, but it's been I think it'll be 3 years in December. So thank you for all the love and support. If you want to subscribe to the show, I come most Wednesdays and Saturdays, Wednesdays and Sundays, if I get days right, Wednesdays and Sundays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. There's a whole catalog of shows that are episodes that are on there. I think this is about the 340th episode, which is amazing. And more like I'm happy and thankful that y'all have ridden with me along this ride. And it's been so fun connecting with this community, building a community here. I've already been in the publishing world with books and so forth, which will be the subject of what we're talking about today. Also, I've been involved with, like I said, the startup community, been involved with the keynote community, with TAD and other organizations. And so it's been wonderful connecting with y'all, specifically here. And it's been a good time. The new book, the complete Bring Your Worth collection, my baby, aside from the babies that I that I have at home. The new baby, it's out or will be out very soon. October 20th. What I meant to say, it's actually available for pre-order if you want to check it out. It's a complete collection, as you can tell, of the Bring Your Worth books, which you guys have supported over the years. So it's the Ultimate Bites as Entrepreneur, which y'all made a bestseller. It's Bring Your Worth, which y'all have given me a lot of great feedback on and a lot of support over the years. And then there's the last one, Build From Now, which was very personal and very intense and very different than the other books that I did. And each one represents not only my own growth, but also a growth as far as what y'all might need in the community, where the original Ultimate Bites as Entrepreneur was based on my adventures being a stay-at-home dad, and my kid being from basically birth to a 2-year-old, and me doing two startups within that period of time. The second one, called Cuddler, got really popular. We ended up selling it around my son's second birthday. So it talks about all the adventures with that and how you can basically make space to make an impact on the world while still being present for your family. The second one, Bring Your Worth, which is the namesake of the show at Bring Your Worth TV, is all about how you can establish your self-worth, because you could have the best success in the world as an entrepreneur, as a startup person, whatever, as a star, whatever you want to call it. But if you don't actually believe that you deserve that success, then you're not going to make it that far, which makes it tough. The last one, called Build From Now, came out right when the pandemic was getting hot and heavy in January of 2021. And that's about how we, as non-traditional entrepreneurs, as side hustlers, as solopreneurs, we have this unique opportunity, a window that, as Seth Godin says, is closing to make an impact on the world. And as that window closes, or as that window stays open for right now, we have an opportunity to really change in ways that we couldn't change before. If you think about it, for the year, 2 years, depending on where you live, that we sheltered in place, it was the first time that literally everyone in the world stopped. And when everything stops, if you're familiar with my work, you know I'm really big on pausing. When everything in the world stops, then you have this unique opportunity to build something different. But when's the next time the world's going to stop? Hopefully not soon. Hopefully we'll be okay in the upcoming years. But my point is that we have this unique opportunity. That's what Build From Now is about. All three of those were in here. Thank you for the early support of it. It'll be coming out October 20th. I'm super excited about it. If you want to go ahead and grab it, of course, you can grab it over at Amazon if you're watching on Amazon Live. Shout out to the Amazonians. Um, bookshop.org. It's my favorite place to get books. No shots at Amazon. No offense to Amazon at all. But bookshops.org is actually a collective of indie bookstores. So I live here in Las Vegas. So I can go to indie.org, bookshop.org. You tell I'm just having my coffee now. Bookshop.org. And then it will say, oh, okay, Damon, you live in Las Vegas. Here are the independent bookstores that you can order from within your radius. And of course, all of them ship, which is beautiful. But if you want to support your local bookstores, you don't actually need to always physically go there. If you want to have stuff shipped to your door, again, I got 2 little kids. I'm spending time with my wife. I'm building my career. I'm helping y'all as a business coach. I'm doing this show a couple times a week. So I don't always have time for that. You don't always have to go to the quote unquote big box stores to do that. Rock with bookshop.org. My link is on there. If you go to that link, then you'll see all my books available, as well as any book that pretty much available at any bookstore. So rock with them if you want to support your indie folks. Of course, you have Amazon. It's available for pre-order on paperback as well as on Kindle. So again, if you're watching on Amazon Live, you just click the link, check it out. If you want something signed from my little hands, you can check out DamonBrown.net and maybe even get an early copy of Bring Your Worth. You can also get the Bring Your Worth t-shirt. Oh, I can barely see it. Bring Your Worth t-shirt as well as the Bring Your Worth mug. Speaking of coffee. And that's where you can get all that good stuff. So feel free to check it out. Oh, thank you, Octavia. I appreciate it. Cheers. You know what's wonderful is that I learned this from doing the show over the years. Excuse me. Give some inside baseball. From over the years is that there's a different community here on YouTube and on Amazon Live and all the basically live broadcasting. I broadcast about 4 different platforms, right? So wherever you're watching, LinkedIn, shout out to y'all. I'm active on LinkedIn right now. With every platform is different. And so as my work has evolved, it's been interesting because it's like, oh, there's a group of folks that are here that are the non-traditional entrepreneurs that are looking to level up. And there's several thousand of y'all that are now subscribed to bringyourworth.tv. Again, at youtube.com/BrownDamon. Feel free to subscribe. Just hit the link below. And so as many of y'all have come through over the last few years, I'm like, it's a different audience than even the folks that I had with my bestsellers when pre-pandemic I was on the road supporting my books. And even when I was, on the TED stages, like it's just different. And so I appreciate all love and support. Thank you, Octavia. I appreciate that. And get the book wherever you see fit. And I'm happy to support you on your journey. So today, we're talking about the books you should be reading next in 2023. It's been a fascinating year of books. And I will get into that as far as some of the books that I've already been into. But there's also some books that are coming out. And if you don't know the publishing world, then books are really, there's kind of this season of books, and the season is usually in the fall. So that's why when you see, like, let's say a former president and a former first lady, if you see a memoir from a major religious figure, all those things, they always come out in the fall, like almost like clockwork. There's a reason for that. That season, as far as the season we're about to go into, is considered the biggest season. And so that's when the big books come out. Mine is actually independently published. It's from Bring Your Worth Publishing. Forgot to mention that. And so this is actually my own little baby, done as much as possible with my own little hands. So I'm actually just part of that season just because of timing. But the rest of these are these heavy hitters, including some major names that I'm proud to say are in my circle, and or I've respected their work and had a chance to connect with them over time. So the books I'm going to highlight Most of them will be out very, very soon, as in like October, November. Believe it or not, we're already in the second half of August. So a lot of these books will be out in a matter of weeks. A couple of these books actually already came out, but I missed them. And so I did a program a handful of months ago, and I'll put the link in there in a moment, where I talked about my favorite books so far in 2023. Then there were these these amazing books that there's a lot of books that came out, and somehow I was like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? How did I miss that? And so we're going to talk about a handful of books that are about to come out, and then a handful of books that are actually great, but it might have been under your radar, or at least it was under mine. So let's get into the show. All right. First one is Data Baby by Susanna Breslin. Shout out to Susanna. For most of these, actually, I have a physical copy. That's how we're rocking nowadays in 2023. Is back to the vinyl and physical copies. This is an early copy, so it looks a little bit rougher. Thank you for Susanna and the publishing company for sending an early copy over to me. Data Baby, let me make sure I get the subtitle right. My Life and a Psychological Experiment. Whew. So here's a short version, and apologies to Susanna if I miss anything. When Susanna was based over in the Bay Area a few decades ago, and she was born, her family actually involved her in a social experiment. And I believe it was based on her research, it was one of the largest social experiments ever done to find out what factors, I guess, nature versus nurture, if you're up in your psychology, what factors create someone who has a successful life, quote unquote. And so there are all these different things that she was exposed to, as were the many, many other people in the study. She's been a journalist as long as I've been. We've actually known each other for quite a while, cross paths. And now she's actually looking back and saying, wait a second, how much of this made an impact on my life? And what does this mean? One of the powerful things with being a writer, or in both my case and Susanna's case, a journalist, is that you have like a lens in your life. That could be a gift and a curse, as Susanna would probably attest to, where sometimes you could be so objective that, it's like a photographer's lens, if you're familiar with that, where if you're a professional photographer, or even in my case, I found this with starting the Bring Your Worth show at bringyourworth.tv, that you start to see the story and the potential in everything. It's like, oh, well, this could mean that, or this could mean that. The positive side about that, or the useful side, is that there's a level of objectivity that you have about your own life. So she's one of the few. I actually haven't heard of the study at all. And so she's the first person that I heard of who is a professional writer and wasn't just writing about the study, but actually was a part of the study. And so it ends up being this energy of memoir. I just started it. I'm excited about it. Again, I've known Susanna over the years. We've worked together a little bit, and I've watched her grow. She actually has fantastic fiction that is available over at her websites as well as as all the places I talked about. Just look up her name. And really, really good fiction. I'm not even a big fiction person, but I loved the fiction that she wrote. Probably, I think she wrote a couple of fiction novels, I want to say about a decade ago. They're fantastic. If I was more prepared, I actually would have the links in there. But just go and check out her name. You can do it on Amazon, or just look up her name. She has a unique name, as you know, and check out her stuff. But this is actually coming out, I want to say, in November. Yeah, in November. Pre-order it. Check it out. She's a fantastic storyteller. And from a little bit that I started reading, if you're familiar with her work at all, or if you check out some of the stuff that she's blogged or written about online, she does not hold any punches. So this is her first memoir. Woo! I know it's going to be a scorcher. So check out Susanna's book. Shout out to her. It's called Data Baby. Particularly, if I get on my soapbox for a second, particularly right now, as we talk about AI, as we talk about technology, as social media companies seem to be in a very uncomfortable position. It's like they're in their ugly teenage years. No offense to teenagers, but it's an ugly time. And they're still trying to figure out what they are. this is a great time to kind of analyze that and talk about that. Again, my kids are 7 and 10, so it's also already making me reflect as far as what it means to be a parent, what it means to be driven to have a successful child, and what links you might go to have a successful child, or to even be a successful child. So big food for thought. If you want to go deeper into some of my other recommendations, like I talked about, you can do check out my live show. I'm trying to remember now. I want to say I did this back in March or April, right before the summer. And it's the best books of 2023 so far. Really, really good books on there. Some of my favorite books. Some of my favorite books, period, came out in the spring. Like, it was a killer spring, you know. And I won't even get into all the books right now, but be sure and check it out. And it's similar to the format of this. When I do a show on Wednesday, it's usually when I do a live show. And so if you like this format, you know, feel free to subscribe. You can subscribe for free at bringyourworth.tv, or check out the links below. Excuse me. Have a little bit of drainage just because it started thunderstorming here in Vegas, which is as rare as snow in Las Vegas, which happened about a year ago. All right, I got a question for y'all. Feel free to plug it in the comments. What is your favorite book genre? I will go first. Excuse me. My favorite genre in general, my favorite genre is nonfiction history, or back when I was involved with the traditional publishing industry, because I have a handful of books that are with traditional publishers. Shout out to y'all, because I love y'all too. Shout out to Penguin and to Barnes & Noble Publishing, which published Career Remix, a book from a couple years ago, and so forth. Shout out to all y'all. Back in the day, I would say about 10, 15 years ago, my favorite genre would have been called microhistory. And microhistory basically means you're taking one simple piece of pop culture history, like, say, a French fry, or if you're familiar with the book, Cod, or shout out to Mark Kurlansky, his other hit book called Salt. I was a big fan of Cod myself. I have a copy of Cod somewhere behind my big head over here. Microhistories are basically looking at one slice of culture and then using it to explain the rest of culture. My friend Wayne Curtis, shout out to Wayne down in New Orleans. He has a book called And a Bottle of Rum, which of course is on the history of rum. And it's history based on a handful of different cocktails that are based on rum. And he talks about the whole history of the world, from people being enslaved to the discovery of America to all this stuff. In fact, I need to reread his book, because the book came out quite a while ago. But fantastic stuff. That is personally my favorite genre, and it's evolved. My two closest friends are actually fiction writers. Shout out to y'all. And so they really exposed me to fiction in ways that, me being up until a young adult, I was I wouldn't say hard-boiled journalist, but I was definitely hard-boiled nonfiction. And that was my main focus. And now it's expanded. And all the books I'm recommending today, I believe, are nonfiction. But I have a couple other books that I'm into right now that are actually fiction or creative nonfiction, which is basically fiction, nonfiction. So a true story, but with some liberties involved. And that's probably the closest I got when I was a wee lad getting into fiction. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten more into fiction, particularly the classics, like the Hemingways and the Fitzgeralds. But if there's a certain genre that you're into, be sure and throw it down in the comments. All right, my next recommendation, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. Oh, this book feels so good. I can't wait actually I can wait for the sake of my kids, because I don't want life to move too fast, but I look forward to when we can actually feel things through the internet, because this feels so good. I want to rub it against my beard. It feels so good. It's almost like a cloth type of setup. I'm not good with describing textures, so forgive me, but it feels great. The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. He's been a lot of places. He's usually reclusive by his own words. If you're not familiar with him, He was the co-founder of Def Jam, which was the first, I would say, second major hip hop label. Shout out to hip hop. You just turned 50. Welcome to the ARPH. And so he co-founded um, the second major hip hop label. The first one was called Sugar Hill, which you might have heard of that. If you heard of Rapper's Delight, they were the first major ones back in the late 70s, around the time I was born. Def Jam was closer to my generation. And that was, I want to say, 83, 84. He was a co-founder of it with, of course, Russell Simmons. And then he went independent and worked with Johnny Cash, and then worked with Slayer, and then worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then worked with LL Cool J, who he discovered over at Def Jam, and then started working with the Dixie Chicks, and just been prolifically creative. And since the Def Jam times, even during the Def Jam times a little bit, has been very much behind the scenes, as opposed to if you counterpoint that with, with some of the other legendary people in the 80s. But that's the short history. I can get way more into detail. This is his first book, and he has this place literally called Shangri-La over in Malibu. There's a fantastic documentary it was on Hulu, called Shangri-La, which is about the compound that he set up over in Malibu and how it fared during the Malibu fires a handful of years ago, but really about the creative process. Shout out to my people over in Maui too. I hope you guys figure things out in any way that we could support. What's great about this particular book is how simple it is. And I've watched a lot of interviews that he's done online. If you go to YouTube or another platform, just look up Rick Rubin. He's done a lot of interviews over the past 6-7 months, which has been fantastic. He's did an interview with Tim Ferriss, interview with Ryan Holiday, interview with quite a few other people. Like, it's just a long list, kind of like a who's who right now with the people who are doing the long form interviews. Wealth of knowledge, extremely humble, very centered. But most importantly, what I got from this book, and I also just started reading this, you can start to see the dog ears. I almost didn't want to dog ear the book, but it was so many gems. I'm like, I have to dog ear this because I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. What's fantastic about the book, and he declared this, I'm sure you see the book, he declared this a while ago, which I love, is he said, I want to create a book, because again, it's his first book. I want to create a book that's timeless. Not timeless as in it's going to be relevant now as it is then, and so forth. Not like that. We all aim for that when we create stuff, right? Timeless as in it's not tied to me and it's not tied to a particular time. That's a different type of timeless. Sun Tzu's The War of Art, or I'm sorry, The Art of War, The War of Art. Shout out to Stephen Pressfield. No, Sun Tzu's The Art of War and other books, they are truly timeless. Where they might mention like a stagehand or bales of hay or gold instead of dollars and rupees, like maybe, but they have a sense of timeless with it. He achieved that. Like, I'm only a little bit in, and I'm like, oh no, he's got it. And what I love about it is just the simplicity of it. And the book is basically about how you can make a creative life, not how you can be a creative. And I think this is a point worth going a little bit deeper into. One of the reasons why I'm really into the work that I do as a coach, as producer and host of the show and so forth, is because I'm finding that misnomer that you have to be a quote unquote artist, and it's an innate principle, it's an innate idea, and or you have to dedicate your life to doing that one thing. And I don't think either one's true. And so the main thing we can do is make space for creativity within the life that we have. Not build everything around, oh, I want to do this creating, I'm going to build everything around it. The best thing we can do is say, I'm going to create a life, and then creativity is going to be a part of it. That's a different instance. I've created entrepreneurship and this TV show and my book publishing and the public speaking and the coaching, all the different, octopus arms, as I say, that I'm involved in. They're built around my family. They're built around my health. They're built around my chosen family, my friends. They're built around travel. They're built around naps, which I had a nap right before I got on the show today. It's built around that. He has a similar energy with the book. As I say in my own book, which is also included in the complete Bring Your Worth collection, you don't need to run away to the circus. You don't need to abandon your principles or leave your values behind or go, live in an ashram for decades to show up as a creative person. You can just create shit. That's all. And that's the energy of the book. That's the energy of Rick Rubin, period. Which is one of the reasons why I admire him so much. He's like, it's not that complicated. I look at my kids, and again, they're 7 and 10, and they just make stuff. They're not trying to figure out if they could sell it. They're not trying to figure out how it might perform with the likes and dislikes or how much it will get shared. They just create shit. I'm trying to get all of us back to the essence. And he's trying to do the same thing. So that's the book. I don't know how I can recommend it more. All right. If you want to go deeper into these ideas, my favorite / best emotional intelligence books. I tie these things together because I feel like emotional intelligence is almost required if you're going to create a life worth living, or to be less dramatic about it, to create a life that's going to be generative versus subtractive. I know we talk about generative. We've been talking a lot about generative AI, but generative was a word well before AI came about. And that means something emanating, something coming out. That's 1 + 1 = 3. It's something more. Me showing up for y'all on the Bring Your Worth show here at Bring Your Worth TV, that's generative. I'm creating something out of nothing. I talk a lot about that in Bring Your Worth. And we have the opportunity to do that. But the more we can be in tune with our emotions, understanding our emotions, being able to articulate our emotions, even if we're just talking to ourselves, the higher we can get to that frequency of just being a creative being. I mean, as soon as this show was done, hopping in my car and picking up my kids from school and then taking them to after school activities and making dinner and all that stuff. And that doesn't subtract from how much I can show up for y'all. And in fact, it adds more flavor or spice to that. But it requires having that emotional foundation to do that. These books that I talk about in the previous Bring Your Worth live show, I think this show was probably from the end of last year, gets into what it means to show up emotionally full. That doesn't mean you're always going to have fun emotions, but to show up emotionally full and to be fully present. All the books will help you with that. As you can tell, it's a big topic for me, and I get totally into the show. Be sure and check it out. I have lots of live shows on bringyourworth.tv too. So I think this is like the 57th, maybe 60th live show. So if you like the live format, be sure and check it out. There's a bunch of content for you. So check it out. All right. So I think it worked. There we go. It's worked. Okay. So another question that I get asked a lot, and I have a question for y'all too, is what are you reading now? Now, a lot of these books that I'm showing, I'm reading now, But there's also some classics that I'm rereading now, which I'll get into in a moment. So that actually I'll save that for the next question. But what are you guys reading now? What are you into? Are you reading fiction um, here uh, in North America, or I should say, in America? Yeah, North America, right here. Forgot where I was for a second. Here in North America, it's the end of summer, so you might be doing the so-called beach reads, and there's nothing wrong with that. Done a couple here and there. Are you reading the serious historical, not nonfiction? What are you into? Let me know in the comments what you guys might be reading now. All right. So my next recommendation is Government Cheese or Government Cheese. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. By Stephen Pressfield. Shout out to Stephen. Shout out to you. Stephen Pressfield in my circles is basically a hero. A handful of years ago, I want to say about a quarter century ago. Oh my gosh, time is flying. He did a fantastic book called the War of Art. See, I almost screwed up again. Apologies to him and Sun Tzu. The War of Art. It's a tiny little book. In fact, let's see. Oh, that stretch. There we go. The War of Art. Tiny little book. I had to show you the physical book because it's tiny. Changed a lot of people's lives, including mine. It's basically the energy of sit your behind down in your seat and create. As you can tell, it's the energy of my show as well. I'm excited about this book, and it came out a few months ago. This is another one that I had missed. I'm excited about this book and starting it because he described it, which he's fantastic with words. Shout out to Stephen. He described it as, I'm finally going to do the book with all the stuff I left out. Think about that one. Even if you read like just The War of Art, I've read most of his books, particularly he's done fiction books as well, but I've read almost all the nonfiction books. If you've read The War of Art, if it's not on your shelf, I recommend you pick it up. He talks about some of the stuff he went through. It's not like he doesn't skim it, but it's not like he gets into the details. And it's like, oh, now Stephen's writing in that book. His book, like Government Cheese, for me, that book for me was Built From Now, where I talked about some of the traumatic things that had happened. I talked about some of the structural racism and bias that I had seen firsthand in the business world as well as just living. And I talked about almost like a call to action for us to change those things. That's the level of vulnerability and honesty that I could not have had earlier in my career. I mean, Built From Now was like my 24th book, like something like that. And I wasn't ready until then, after X number of years, decades writing books. This feels like that book for him, where sometimes as an author, you're ready to talk about those topics that are tough. And Government Cheese, if you're not familiar, when you're in the welfare system or you're getting subsidized because you're lower income, then you actually get your food products from the government. So you get government cheese, government peanut butter, government jelly, very much generic and based on some opinions, not the highest quality stuff. I was not part of that, but many parts of my family were. So I know just enough. Shout out to Camden, where my family's from, over in New Jersey. I know just enough to know what the deal is. And so I know Stephen. I've got a chance to meet him personally too. Love his work. And I know, kind of like Susanna with Data Baby, there's not going to be any punches held when he addresses something. So anyway, check out the book. He's a fantastic writer, and he's good with the heavy stuff. And this is, as it says, a memoir. So Steven is not playing around. If you want to go deeper into more so of the war of art and those kind of ideas, check out my live show I did a handful of months ago on the best business audiobooks out now. If you're familiar with my work, you know that, or have been a long time viewer of the channel or the podcast, you know that I really didn't get to audiobooks until much later in life, like a handful of years ago, around the time that my first son was born. He just turned 10, so about 10 years ago. And that was because I'm used to physical books. I love physical books. As you can tell, I would pan the camera, but there's like stacks of books over here. I have a newsletter at joindamon.me, and the newsletter comes out every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. And that was my newsletter today. As I was announcing I was going to be doing the live show today, was I was like, my office is just filled with books. There's books right now. There's a season of books. But I'm really into the physical process of books and the reading and just sitting somewhere. And as my kids and my partner can attest to, I'll just sit in the corner and read a book and crochet a blanket. You know what I mean? Like just chill. And when you're taking care of kids, particularly babies, you can't have your hands occupied because you're changing diapers, you're catching them when they roll off the couch, stuff like that. That's what got me into audiobooks. And since then, I've really gotten into audiobooks. And then since I've become a public speaker and of course doing this show for the last few years, I've been really into voices, what people sound like. And it's different when you're reading a Seth Godin book. Shout out to Seth. You're reading a Seth Godin book and you're like, okay, that's a great concept. Like one of them I've been reading is and just finishing up actually is A Song of Significance. Quick read, really good read. I could have read it in like an evening, but I haven't. I'm like savoring it. So like, as I get close to the end, I keep getting slower and slower. But it's one thing, if you're familiar with Seth Godin's work, he has a very distinctive voice and he will get you out your chair. And so it's one thing to be like, oh, you should motivate people. And it's different to have Seth intensely saying that in your ear with his upstate New York accent. And it's like, oh, I should be motivating people. Anyway, in the live, I talk about my favorite books in that genre, and it's all that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah. Oh, you read Art of War. Yeah, I love Art of War. Thank you. What I love about the Art of War is the timelessness of it. And again, it applies to now. And in fact, in the link that I just shared, which is actually available below, if you click on the link, with the best audiobooks, one of them is actually The Art of War. And I think I own probably about 5 copies of it. Maybe a couple of them I gave away, so I probably have 3 now. And a couple of them are audiobooks. And the newest audiobook that I found, again, it's in the link in the description for the best audiobooks, was fantastic. What I love about The Art of War, because you're also asking, it looks like, what was my favorite chapter? Oh, I don't know. They all kind of blur together because it's a very short book. I wish I had a physical copy here. It's a very short book. One of my favorite concepts, though, which was essentially cribbed by Bruce Lee, is to be like water. So to be fluid. Because if you think about it, to get philosophical for a second, I think Sun Tzu and Bruce Lee would appreciate it. When water is in a certain environment, it automatically goes to the lowest levels and finds the cracks. So it finds the openings, right? So if you're in a tough situation, you can find a way out of it. But also when things heat up, when things get intense, it can disappear seemingly and then appear somewhere else, right? Because water turns into steam. But if it ends up being a harsh environment and it needs to get tough, then it can turn into ice. But once it's out of the harsh environment, then it goes back into its normal liquid form. And you can't really capture water. You can't really fight it because it just bends around wherever you're attacking. I love the concept. And there's, I think there might be a chapter on that. Might be a chapter on that, Darren. I don't know, but there's a whole passage talking about water in in the Art of War. So as you can tell, it's one of my favorite books. Fantastic. See, Darren, you're gonna make me pull it back out again, and it's fantastic book. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, you're bringing back a lot of memories because I've not read it in a while. Speaking of that, this will be my final question for the show as we wrap up. What classic do you keep coming back to? And one that I keep coming back to, especially lately, is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Shout out to him. Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. I always screw up his last name, so I want to make sure I read it. But actually, I know him a little bit. So shout out to Stephen Hanselman. This book's fantastic. The short version of it is that there's Stoic philosophy from literally millennia ago. They distilled it down into 366 principles. You might see the pattern there. So with those 366 principles, that's a principle a day, plus a leap year. That's why it's 366. So every single day, you can see the little ribbon there. Keep me honest. Every single day, I can flip in here and read one of the basic things. And this book, goes full circle, was one of the first audiobooks I ever bought. Excuse me. You can imagine me being at home with a 4-month-old son trying to build my first startup. And wife and I had never had kids before, so it was kind of very hands-on. And this helped me get through some stuff. I'll put it like that. I've never had, in fact, I take that back. I've never had a nice hardcover copy. I always had a paperback, or of course I had the audiobook of it. And it's been fantastic to read it over again. Yeah, my kid is 10. So the last time, I think I went through the Daily Stoic probably about 3 years ago in audiobook form. And then, and then I think I had the paperback. There's a little tiny paperback that I think I got a few years before that. So I've only read it like 4 times. And so it's nice to kind of come back to something that, you know, you're a different person. And was it Heraclitus, right? A man can never cross the same river twice because he's not the same man and it's not the same river, right? Same energy. And that's why the books that I have up here, almost all of them I've read multiple times. The amount of books that I've read, probably similar to a lot of y'all, is a lot. But these are the ones where it's like, I'm coming back to them. And sometimes it's a mood. It's a vibe, as the kids say. All right, my last recommendation, Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. Shout out to Adam. Adam has this wonderful way of synthesizing what we're missing. And it can apply to the corporate environment as far as business and what we do, or it can apply to the personal, whether it's being a good parent, maybe even being a good kid, being empathetic to our neighbors and the people around us, even the people we don't like, and being careful as far as discounting people. I mean, it says it all in the name, Hidden Potential. So what are the things, or I think Adam might be getting closer to this, who are the people that actually have this tremendous value and maybe even want to give this tremendous value to our society, but then aren't, because whatever they have to contribute isn't valued on the surface. With my work, and that's one of the reasons why Adam and I have connected over the years, my work is based on my belief that everyone, literally everyone, has something to contribute. Like literally everyone. And so if that's the case, then it's a matter of society adjusting so that everyone can contribute versus people trying to adjust themselves or be something else so they can contribute. That's a cornerstone of my work. That's one of the reasons why I'm a coach. One of the reasons why I have this show. And Adam's energy is very similar. We've connected a few times over the years. I've always appreciated his work. And this book has come out in October. It's already on the bestseller list as far as pre-orders. Adam always kills it. And I can't wait to dig into it. It's coming out, I want to say October 24th. My own book, The Complete Bring Your Worth, comes out. See, I told you I have a bunch of books here. Comes out October 20th. Very similar. A few years ago, we had a very close date for our books too. So happy to be in good company with Adam. You can pre-order both. Pre-order both. Why not? Go for it. Act reckless today. Order as many books as you want. But I'm excited to dig into his book. I'm sure he'll have talks and other things related to it. And I'll be sure and keep you guys posted on it. If you want to go deeper as far as with Adam's work, I did an episode about a year ago about one of Adam's, it might have been Adam's, I think it was his second bestseller. He's had like a few of them. His second major book called Give and Take. And I won't even get into the premise now, but basically he's putting people into three different buckets and figuring out how we show up in environments, whether it's again the family environment, friend environment, or in the corporate environment. And the subtitle, as far as my episode about it, just says it all: how to give without losing yourself. So how do you make an impact on the world without losing yourself in the process? That's exactly what like Rick Rubin's getting at, right? That's what that whole whole thing I was talking about at the top, near the top of the show. It's like, how are we going to show up in a certain way and yet still maintain ourselves? How do you give your all and then still remain whole? And this episode gets into that. I highly recommend this book, Give and Take. I was late on this because I saw him speak at TED and I bought the book Originals, which I think is somewhere up here. Yeah, a prize if you can find it up here. I got into that, and then I think something else was going on. I never got into Give and Take, but it was a very popular book. And I went straight into his later books, including like Think Again, which came out a couple of years ago. Fantastic book. That was his last book. But then I think it was about a year and a half ago, around the time I did this episode, I finally was like, you know what? I got a little bit of time. Let me listen to, because I did the audiobook, Give and Take. And it was fantastic. Even though, the book is probably approaching 10 years old now. This episode gets into that. If you feel like you want to contribute to the world, but you feel like you're being taken advantage of, or it's not jiving right for you, you feel like that you're giving too much and you're gonna fall off the wagon, or you feel like that you want to give a lot, but you're afraid of being hurt in the process. This is definitely episode to watch, and I highly recommend this book. Shout out to Adam. As you know, Adam, I love your work. So, good luck with the launch and everything. All right. So those are my picks for what you should read next. Check out my book, The Complete Bring Your Worth, coming out October 20th. You can pre-order it now. Support indie publishers and support indie bookstores. You can support the indie bookstores through bookshop.org. Order all the books that I mentioned on there. You can also go to the big guy, Amazon. And if you want signed paperbacks from me, I will sign it with my own little hands, as well as the Bring Your Worth merchandise. I should stand up, but I'm not. as well as the Bring Your Worth mug. And to recap, it's Data Baby by Susanna Breslin, coming out very soon. I want to say November, coming out November. We have The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That's already out. Still a bestseller. It's been number one for like months now. I'm just getting into it, but it's definitely worth checking out if you have any interest in having creativity in your life, which we all should, I believe. We have Government Cheese by the man Stephen Pressfield. Shout out to him and shout out for all the love. He actually gave me a beautiful blurb for complete Bring Your Worth collection. So thank you, Stephen. I always appreciate you for sure. It's humbling, trying to follow in your footsteps. And then lastly, Hit a Potential by Adam Grant. That'll be coming out October, around the time of my book. So it'll be late October, I think October 24th. You can pre-order it now. It's already tearing up the charts on the pre-orders, but Adam always kills it. And good luck to you, Adam, on the launch and everything. I look forward to seeing you shine. All right, that is the Bring Your Worth TV show. It's a lot of Wednesdays and Sundays. It's been a little bit more leisurely during the summer months. And not sure if you can tell, but the equipment's different. So I had to do a little bit of an upgrade. Also, if you go to bringingworth.tv and subscribe, it's completely free. You also will be getting my shorts. And shorts are little nuggets, up to 60 seconds with gems from this TV show, from the recorded episodes that are pre-recorded, or even original stuff that I've been creating. So I've been in the factory creating a whole bunch of really interesting, at least interesting to me, shorts about how you can thrive doing creative work. Anyway, much love to y'all. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care.